Hello there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. Let's go. I, 59 male, cut 2 of my kids, 24 female, 28 male, out of my will for his irresponsible spending of their previous inheritance. How should I fix this situation? My, now deceased, ex-wife and I have 5 kids together. They range from 21 to 35. A few years ago, their mother passed away and left each of them a very large inheritance, over 300,000 GBP each, evenly distributed among them. Prior to her passing, she made it clear to them that this money was not to be wasted. It was to 1. Be used to pay off debt, 2. Used to further education, or 3. Put towards buying a house in the future. 2 of my kids, 24 female and 28 male, have completely squandered this money in just a couple of years. My daughter spent it all, traveling across the world carefree, staying in nice hotels and eating fancy dinners. I completely understand going on a vacation, but to blow all of it on travel against her mother's wishes? Bloody shameful. My son is even worse. He has literally spent all of it on drugs, alcohol and escorts over this time. None of it, none, going towards self-improvement as their mother wanted. So I continued to hound them over this time and time again until, as expected, it's all bloody wasted. Once this happened, I decided to cut both of them out of my will, as I don't want my hard-earned money being squandered so my children can live a hedonistic lifestyle for a couple of years. I told this to their siblings in confidence so that they would be prepared to deal with the fallout when I eventually pass. One of them, not sure who, let it slip to them, and now they've gone off the deep end and proclaimed that I'm dead to them and they don't have a dad, etc. I don't want to go into a long, bitter feud with my kids, but damned if I'm gonna have my life savings wasted by them also. Any advice on how to fix this? In the comments. I am a UK lawyer that deals with this specific area of law. You need to see a wills and probate lawyer who can advise you properly on what to do. Someone said that leaving them a small amount can prevent them contesting the will, but this isn't true. Your children are automatically entitled to make a claim on your estate under the Inheritance Act of 1975 if they believe they have not been adequately provided for under your will. Please be clear that this is not contesting the validity of a will, it is disputing the benefit that they have or have not received from your estate. This is a complex area of law, and you need to see a solicitor to get proper advice. As to your children, this is the reason I advise my clients to leave large sums of money in trust for children. If you want to prevent irresponsible spending, it is the only way to have some control over your money after you have died. Unfortunately, the 24 and 28-year-olds have validated your thinking of their expectations. It was, of course, proper to inform their siblings of your decisions, since they would directly deal with the fallout. However, I probably would have taken it on the chin and told all of the kids at the same time, so there would be no questions of the seriousness. You may want to consider that some people do not fully mature until their 30s. You may also consider putting stipulations in your will, something to the effect of requiring gainful employment for a period of 5 years at the same agency or firm prior to the inheritance being relinquished. If the stipulation isn't met, then the funds go into a trust for their children if they have them, or is split equally amongst their siblings. Every parent just wants the children to be safe and taken care of. Your decision is just that, yours. Best of luck deciding. And now, on to the update. So I took the advice of the previous thread, which was overwhelmingly to consider setting up a trust for my 2 problem children. Before I even invited the 2 of them over to talk the issue over, my son called me to apologize for how he was acting. He seemed genuinely ashamed of the things that he said and admitted that it was wrong of him to waste his mother's savings like that. Anyway, I invited the 2 of them over to tell them my plans. As I say, my son seemed very apologetic, while my daughter was clearly still upset with me. I told them that I would reinstate their inheritance, but since they've demonstrated extremely poor money management, that I will only do so through a trust, that I would talk with a proper lawyer/financial expert on setting them up, and they would be designed to provide for them and any future children they have over many years after I'm gone, that them blowing through it in a few years is simply not an option. Son took the news very well and said he wouldn't trust himself with that money anyway. I'm not sure what caused such a sudden change of heart in my son, but as I say, it seemed genuine. He also offered to go to therapy for his sex and drug addiction if I helped pay, to which I agreed. I'll make sure this therapist actually exists, don't worry. My daughter did not take it well, Christ. Far worse than I expected. Here I am willing to give them a second chance, and she just blows up about how it's not fair that it's only them that don't get their money outright. I explained that their siblings had demonstrated that they were responsible with money, and hence why I would leave it to them outright. Nope, not good enough for her. She doubled down that spending all of her mother's $300k plus GBP on travel was justified, had the goal to again call me several extremely upsetting names, and accuse me of being emotionally abusive. So I told my daughter that as I'm retiring soon, perhaps I should experience the joys of travel also. Perhaps I should spend her inheritance that I have worked for my entire life on travel myself. She stormed out and hasn't contacted me since. Really proud of how my son's taken the news. Extremely disappointed in my daughter. Genuinely considering spending her part of the inheritance on travel myself at this point. Edit 1. Guys, I understand how petulant my daughter is behaving, but please refrain from using profanities. She's still my daughter, and I'd rather not read that stuff. You can criticize her behavior without cussing. Edit 2. At the encouragement of some kind people here, I've booked flights to Hong Kong a few weeks from now. We'll be using up all of my accumulated leave to travel across China. I've always wanted to visit the country, and I'm looking forward to this. Now in the comments. About a year before he died, my dad decided that he wanted to sell his house and go into assisted living. The place he chose was really nice, the kind of place you'd want to live out your final days, but he was hesitant to do it because he didn't want to, in his words, spend his kids' inheritance. My siblings and I totally disagreed. I told him that living the life that he deserved was exactly how we wanted him to spend his money. As it turned out, he died after 6 months and did leave us an inheritance, but the knowledge that he spent his final days in a place that he loved was worth more than anything to us. My in-laws are retired and have savings and investments, though not enough to do extravagant things, but they could easily go on a few nice trips every year. The other day, they were fretting about a summer lecture series that they wanted to attend, but that would be pricey accommodation-wise. It came up that sister-in-law talked to them about spending her inheritance. I can't even imagine saying something like that. I hope to leave my kids something, but I'm absolutely spending my own money. Part of me wonders if the son is just playing the part. It'd be interesting to see the rules outlined in the trust. He seems to have handled it correctly though. F blowing through 300k that damn quick. Free ticket to get a house and set yourself up and you just burn it? Idiots. Nah, as a drug addict myself, that sounds about right. Lots of shame. He's probably at the point that he knows he's effing up, but just can't stop even when he tries his hardest. Doesn't mean it'll last, but it's pretty typical. He is desperate enough to try something different, so that's great. My last round getting clean had similar start, and it's been like 10 years sober now. Our next post is titled, "So I messed up bad, real bad. Just one more warning to all of you before you start a project that requires demolition." So 2 weeks ago, my wife and I decided that it was time to replace our falling apart laminate floors. The location of the laminate that we were replacing was in the kitchen, dining room, family room, living room, and main hallway. We thought it would be nice to have all the rooms, including the kitchen and dining room, all one floor. So we ripped up all of the old click laminate. In the hallways and family room, we found original 1970s vinyl underneath. Since we planned on laying the floating floors again, we decided to just leave it alone. We proceeded to chip up all of the tile in the kitchen, making our way to the dining room. We got the tile up in the kitchen, and we were left with an absolutely mess of thinset. So I googled the easiest way to get up thinset. I found a video on YouTube showing us how to use a grinder with a shop vac attachment and diamond grinding wheel. I went to town, and it worked a treat, and I was super proud of how well that it came out. Here's where my story goes south. 2 days later, my dad came over to check the progress we made. I was showing him the kitchen, explaining the process that I used to quickly take the thinset off. My father proceeded to look at the floor and asked what was the material on it. I said it's concrete, or it appeared to be anyways. He said, no it's not, and he proceeded to grab a utility knife and cut a small square of material off the floor where I had ground down the thinset. It was a paper-like material that was brittle. He said it looked to be the paper backing that came with old vinyl sheet flooring. He looked over at the family room, saw the old sheet flooring, and told me that I needed to get out of the house and get the materials tested. So I packed up the wife and kids and headed to my parents' house for the weekend. Yesterday, the testing company came out and took samples from all over the house. Today, we received the results. Both the vinyl in the family room and the paper that was below the thinset tested positive for asbestos. The paper stuff below the thinset tested positive for 15% white crystalline asbestos. The story gets worse. I test ground a spot on Wednesday night and did a little bit more on Thursday night. We live in South Florida. We ran the aircon overnight both nights. I then continued to finish the job on Friday as the air conditioner was off all day. Because I pulverized the asbestos into a fine powder, literally the absolute worst thing that you can do, and even though I was running the shop vac pulling up the material as I went, it didn't have HEPA filter and just a regular collection bag. So, therefore, the asbestos, through the help of my air conditioner, has contaminated my entire home. I exposed my family to a toxic, cancer-causing element and effectively ruined my home because I didn't know what I was doing. Something so innocent as just wanting to lay floors has turned into an absolute nightmare. I consider myself lucky because if it wasn't for my father, we would have continued to lay the floor and just cleaned up and never had a second thought about it and just lived in it. The one thing I don't understand is why there isn't more awareness about this stuff. Like, seriously, there should be freaking commercials, warnings at Home Depot, pamphlets or something. Hell, the guy at the freaking flooring store could have said, hey, make sure to check what's underneath your old floors before you begin. I asked the asbestos tester that, based on her experience, was it common for homeowners to do exactly what I did and never know about it? She said probably about 90% of people who do DIY do not test and do not know that they have contaminated their home. She told me that some contractors are even worse because they do so many homes. They are often working with unskilled labor that don't know or don't care and just rip it up, contaminate the area, and leave. Anyways, sorry for the wall of text, but I literally feel sick about what happened. We have no access to anything in the home. We will likely have to trash clothes, sheets, basically any fabrics in the home. We are in the position where we can afford to fix this problem, but honestly, it's clearing us out. Let my mistake be a lesson. Be safe. In the comments, my house was built in 1974. Designed and built by an engineer, it is sturdy as all get out and has some cool features that only an engineer would think of and do. This wonderful gentleman was a GE engineer, and a lot of that plant was used around the house. My mom was nervous about asbestos when I purchased it, but my chemist of a dad shrugged and said the PCBs that are more than likely everywhere were way worse. We replaced floors and painted wood paneling. The hideous 10x10 tilings on the ceilings stayed. But all in all, Dad was right. That plant closed decades ago, and all 300 plus acres sit vacant in the middle of town, too contaminated to do anything with. There's a lot of things that give you cancer. I'm sorry, and I know it's not cheap. What are some of the cool features that the engineer included? I'll start by saying there was an industrial metal lathe in the garage when we purchased the house. A blueprint printer in one half of the finished basement that he had on wheels so he could hide it easily. Handmade shelves everywhere with anything you'd ever need left for us. The house is a very open split level. The attic access folds down on the stairs going up. It's heavy, but once unfolded, it gracefully falls on a step and is a sturdy set of handmade collapsible stairs with a handrail. All of his old GE manuals and college papers are still up there, along with lots of lost history. The front porch is long and wide. The swing there is super bolted to the roof of the porch and through to the attic. It's far enough forward that I can do what I call the elementary school swing. It'll move and is a blast. All the crank windows still worked. We replaced them, but I was amazed they were all kept in working order. The AC runoff tube was ran into a trash can with a sub pump, and then pumped it into the dump sink behind the washing machine. This wasn't code, so we had to run it outside, but 2 seasons of bleaching the tube so it didn't kick off, and we set it right back up like he had it. The house has a built-in vacuum system that he put a lot of thought into. The canister is in the garage, but there is a switch on the stairs. 2 points to hook the tube to, 1 up and 1 down, and you can reach most of the house from those 2 points. Our 2 upstairs bathrooms are back to back. Both have a wall-mounted toilet bolted to each other through the wall and dump into the same sewage pipe. Not all that cool, but he went for simplicity. And now, on to the update. Well, it was bad. As bad as I thought it would be. I received 4 quotes for the decontamination and removal of the rest of the asbestos containing floors, which ranged from $17,000 all the way up to $38,000. All contractors I spoke with told me essentially the same thing, that all porous materials had to be disposed of and that my fiberglass AC ductwork also had to go. The contractor we went with ended up costing us $22,000 for the abatement and another $6,800 for the ceiling repairs and refinishing. So here I am, a month and a half into this nightmare, and we just had our clearance testing done. 2 air samples out of 9 failed. The concentration for the worst one was up at 340 S per cc, and the other one was at 140 S per cc. This was after negative air machines were running 24 hours a day for weeks, and after the cleaning of every hard surface. My abatement contractor told me that in 24 years, he's never failed a clearance air sample test. He's also said that this was the first time he's ever seen someone grind the material. He's heard of it, just never seen it. But this just goes to show how high the concentration of asbestos was in the air when I originally ground the material. So the second round of cleaning and air filtration is happening right now as I write this. All in all, we lost all of our clothes, mattresses, clothing, towels, sheets, pretty much anything that had fabric on it. The ceilings had to be trenched in order to pull the AC ductwork out without contaminating the attic, as well as my air handler having to be completely disassembled and cleaned. All of this happened because I did not know what I was doing. Had I chipped up some of the tiles and recognized what was under the thinset, I would have never ground it. But I didn't know what I was looking at. Luckily, my father did. I cannot stress this enough. If you're in an old house and you are going to be performing your own demo work on anything that could even remotely contain asbestos, vinyl floors, mastic, popcorn, joint compound, really old insulation, siding, etc., spend the $20 on a DIY test kit and wait a week for results. I cannot stress enough how much a pain in the ass it is to get rid of asbestos once it is in the air. $50 and a 1-week delay to your project is a hell of a lot cheaper and safer than what I am going through. Also, if it's asbestos, go online and get disposable Tyvek suits and P100 respirators. Be safe. A one-time hit of asbestos isn't the worst, but as sure as crap isn't good. Be careful with the stuff. In the comments, to others learning from this, just remember that asbestos isn't dangerous if it's not friable, broken up and floating around in the air, and is encapsulated. It is perfectly safe to build over asbestos. I live in an old farmhouse and had a hot water radiator pipe leak. Not a chance in hell that I'm paying someone $10,000 to come remove the pipe, which is surely insulated with asbestos, and whatever other surprises they find along the way. It is much safer and cheaper to buy extra PEX. Run it through an inconspicuous location, down through and boxed in the back of a closet or open wall space. Always get a good plumber/HVAC pro for assistance, and leave the asbestos covered and undisturbed. OP replies, listen to this guy. My situation is unique in that the asbestos was hiding under a layer of thinset and that I ground it up. If you can, always leave it be. Yeesh. Let's hope this is the only consequence his family faces. To make matters even more fun, odds are high that some of the paint in that house has lead in it. Lead paint was banned 1 year after asbestos in the States. Test for lead and asbestos before any home improvement project, folks. It is cheap, easy, and will save your life and your kids, unless your building was built after 1980. Even if someone has done work since then and it looks like a renovated area, check. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.